No nanny could survive a day with the billionaire's triplets. Until the black woman did what? The sound of shattering glass echoed through the Whitmore mansion, followed by screams that seemed to come straight from hell. When Kesha Williams walked through the golden gate of the $50 million estate, she found 3 6-year-old boys turning the living room into a battlefield. Red paint dripped down the white walls like blood. Crystal furniture lay in pieces on the marble floor. Feathers from torn pillows floated like dirty snow. But what shocked her most wasn't the destruction. It was the pure hatred in those children's eyes. "Another black nanny," sneered Tyler, the leader of the triplets. "Daddy said you're cheaper." He hurled a toy truck at her feet. Kesha, 32, had never imagined her career as a preschool teacher would lead here. A Howard graduate specializing in childhood trauma, she had spent a decade helping at-risk children, but nothing prepared her for 3 privileged boys who turned tormenting nannies into sport. "You won't last an hour," Dylan taunted, splashing more paint on the wall. Mason, the quietest, only studied her as if calculating how to break her. From the doorway, Margaret Whitmore, the billionaire matriarch, appeared, pearls gleaming, Botoxed smile condescending. 17 nannies have quit in 6 months, she said. The last one was a Harvard graduate, left in tears. Kesha glanced at the chaos, then back at her. "I understand completely, Mrs. Whitmore." What Margaret didn't know was that Kesha had grown up on Chicago's South Side, where children expressed trauma through violence far deeper than tantrums. She saw the signs instantly. These boys weren't demons. They were wounded. So instead of shouting, Kesha did what no other nanny had done. She knelt on the floor and began building with scattered blocks. Mason froze. "What are you doing?" "Building a fort," Kesha said calmly. "Every war needs a headquarters." For the first time, the boys paused. Margaret bristled. How dare this woman ignore destruction and sit on the floor as if nothing was wrong? "Kesha," Margaret snapped, "my children just caused $20,000 worth of damage, and you're building toys?" "Objects can be replaced," Kesha replied evenly. "Broken hearts cost far more." Richard Whitmore stormed in, veins bulging. "What the hell is going on?" He scanned the wreckage, then Kesha. "How much are we paying her?" $3,000 a week, Margaret sighed. Richard scoffed. "Generous. She's probably never seen that much in her life." Kesha kept stacking blocks unmoved. Then she rose, lifted a book from a broken shelf. "The Prince and the Pauper," Mark Twain. A story about how nobility has nothing to do with money. The boys stopped entirely. The nanny who didn't flinch, didn't beg, didn't cry, she intrigued them. Richard growled, "We don't need philosophy. We need discipline." "Correct," Kesha said softly. "But discipline can teach fear or respect. Which do you want?" The room froze. Richard, unused to defiance, tried intimidation. "You work for us. Do things our way or leave." Kesha met his glare with the steel of a woman who had survived systemic racism and grief. "You may fire me at any time, Mr. Whitmore. But while I'm here, your sons will be treated as human beings, not problems." To everyone's shock, Mason crouched by her fort. "You made the base bigger for the tall tower." "Why?" "My little brother taught me," she said softly. "Strong foundations matter more than pretty walls. He died when I was 15. A stray bullet." The boys fell silent. Tyler whispered, "Is that why you're not scared of us?" "I'm not scared because I've seen kids survive far worse. And you 3 are stronger than you know." For the first time, their eyes softened. "That night," Margaret hissed to her husband, "she won't last a week." But 3 days later, the mansion was unrecognizable. Instead of smashing antiques, the boys built bridges of toothpicks and marshmallows. They cooked breakfast with Kesha, planted herbs in the garden, asked questions about fairness and family. Margaret grew anxious. "They're changing," she told Richard. Tyler asked how many employees we have. Dylan asked why our house is so big. Mason asked if I miss your mother. She's filling their heads with ideas. "Or maybe," Richard muttered, She's just teaching them to be decent humans. Meanwhile, Kesha discovered the truth. One evening, Mason whispered, "Is it normal for Dad to yell at Mom every night? He says some people don't deserve what they have." Tyler added, "That's why we break things. We thought anger meant smashing stuff like Dad." Keisha's heart sank. Their chaos wasn't spoiled privilege. It was learned violence. That night, she called her best friend, Dr. Jasmine Parker, a social worker. "Jazz, I'm documenting everything. The boys are victims of emotional abuse, but I need to protect myself. The Whitmores would destroy me if they knew." "Then document carefully," Jasmine warned. "Record, date, photograph, and be ready for war." With Rosa, the longtime housekeeper, as an ally, Kesha gathered evidence: screaming matches, racist remarks, the children's confessions. Rosa confirmed everything. Finally, one Monday morning, while Richard and Margaret sipped cappuccinos, an unmarked van pulled up. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore," said Jasmine, flashing her ID. "Department of Social Services. We've received detailed reports of neglect and emotional abuse." Margaret sputtered. "Reports from who?" "From multiple witnesses supported by audio recordings and photographs." Jasmine's voice was firm. Richard roared, "Absurd! This is harassment!" At that moment, Kesha entered with the triplets, calm, smiling, transformed. "The boys are ready for their interviews," she told Jasmine. Margaret's face twisted. "It was you. You were spying on us." "I was protecting your children," Kesha said. Rosa stepped forward, voice steady. "I've worked here 15 years. I can confirm everything in her report. The Whitmores panicked, but it was too late. Evidence was airtight. Media leaks exposed not only abuse but also Richard's financial crimes. Their empire collapsed overnight. The triplets were placed with loving relatives, receiving therapy and stability. For the first time, they laughed without fear. 2 years later, Kesha stood on stage at the National Child Protection Conference, honored for her nonprofit that had already saved hundreds of children. "True child protection," she told the crowd, "begins when we stop blaming children for reflecting the toxic environments we create." In the audience, Rosa smiled proudly, now a supervisor at an ethical company. Jasmine, now a regional director, applauded. The Whitmores lived reduced lives. Richard in a modest apartment, Margaret selling perfume at a department store. Their children visited them on weekends but thrived elsewhere. On television, Richard once watched Keisha's speech. Only then did he realize the truth. He had underestimated her completely. She hadn't just survived his house. She had saved it. In the end, the Whitmores learned the hardest truth of all. Money could buy silence, but it could never buy respect, love, or the loyalty of children. And Kesha? She proved that true strength is quiet, steady, and unshakable. She didn't just survive what 17 others couldn't. She turned chaos into healing, fear into trust, and 3 broken little boys into children who could finally dream again. Because sometimes the most powerful change begins not with wealth or status, but with the courage of one woman who refuses to bow, refuses to break, and chooses instead to kneel on the floor and build. Thank you for giving your time to this story. If it touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next story of courage, justice, and transformation.